Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daryl Talks podcast. Today, we've got our first overseas persons. We've got Tom, and he's come all the way from Australia to do this episode. And it is definitely not because he's actually from Saltash originally and was visiting family over the festive period. So, without further ado, welcome, Tom.
Good morning, Daryl. How are you?
I'm so much better now. I can see that you're being listened to on the microphone. We've just had a bit of a faux pas, and Tom was the one who noticed that his microphone wasn't working.
Logistics are never easy, are they?
So we only got about 10 minutes in. So I know how he's gonna answer his questions now.
I might mix it up. You don't know.
Mix it up. Don't do that to me, and don't ask me any questions.
Noted.
So let's get the icebreaker questions out of the way. What is your go-to karaoke song, Tom?
My go-to karaoke song is Evermore from Disney's Beauty and the Beast from the live-action remake.
Oh, nice. That's the one with the really deep tones, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, though.
Yeah, Tom just showed
nice
me that.
Nice and belty.
And it's... I forgot what I was going to say. Are you a fan of karaoke?
I love karaoke. It's great. I think people that don't like it, like, they get embarrassed, and I think they get embarrassed because they're like unsure of where their vocal talents sit.
Yeah.
But I think it doesn't matter. You're either good or you're not, and either way, it is what it is. You might as well crack on and give it a go.
Yeah.
It's a laugh.
Treat it like a silent disco.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
dance like no one's watching, sing like no one hears.
That is exactly right. Just give it your all.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who can actually sing, needs to step away from the karaoke machine.
Yeah.
It needs to be the song needs to be ruined by the end of your karaoke session.
Yeah. I want to hear pitchy and flat all the way through.
Right. Second question is, if you could have a superpower, what would it be?
I've thought this one through a few times, and I always used to think flight would be the answer. And with my career, that would make sense that flight would be the answer. But then I think the ability to transport yourself from one spot to another would be a bit cooler. And then my one-up from that would be like Mystique's superpower to transform herself into like
a shapeshifter.
Yeah, a shapeshifter. I think that would be great.
That is
I think
cool.
that would be cool. Just be able to like switch to whoever I wanted to be in the moment. Be like a super spy.
I think that is an underrated superpower, actually. Because effectively you could do what you like.
Yeah. Just walk into a bank, look like the bank manager.
There's so many benefits. Yeah, I just need the vault.
Yeah.
And then, yes.
But also, I could change this face. That would be useful.
You have a beautiful face.
Oh, thanks, Daryl.
Don't let anybody tell you any different.
I probably won't.
And I'm jealous that you grow a beard.
Yeah, it's not bad, eh?
No.
It's one of the few good ticks in a box for me. I can hold a good beard.
I am a late bloomer, as my mum says.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting to sort of grow out anything. Third and final question is, if you could have dinner or a day with 3 celebrities, dead or alive, who would they be?
This is another question I've thought about before, and they would be Jesus, the Buddha, and then probably like Henry Cavill for some eye candy.
What? Now, bear in mind, I've heard that answer before. It's still funny to think about. And are we talking about Fat Buddha?
I'm relatively certain the iconography around Buddha has shifted away from what he'd actually look like.
Yeah.
Given the story of his origins, chances are he was relatively slender.
I do want to mention that Henry Cavill's position at your dinner table is just hilarious.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you seen the man?
And he's absolutely gorgeous, but I wonder how much he would contribute.
Oh, he's pretty switched on. And he's a bit of a geek.
He's a super geek, isn't
he? I think he'd be an entertaining person to chat to. And if he wasn't, I'd carry on the philosophical debate with Buddha and Jesus. I'd be like, right, sit down, be quiet.
Yeah,
you've piped up quite enough.
So, how do we know each other, Tom?
Well, we grew up not very far apart from each other.
At the ripe old age of about 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because you would have been the year below me at school.
I was a year below you at school.
So when I was in reception, which was like 4, you would have been 3.
Did you go to Landolf Playgroup?
Yeah.
Right. So
probably before.
Yeah.
And
My next question was going to be, did our mums know each other prior to that? Because my mum is from Scotland and moved down to Cornwall for work and then met Dad. And then she made a lot of the friends that she has now as mothers at that playgroup.
yeah, so I don't know actually.
Yeah.
But I do love Trish.
She's great. Yeah.
She is great. She was
wonderful.
She was the first Scottish person that I'd ever known.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just a lovely lady.
One of the girls I used to coach up in Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago met my mum, and she was like, "She's so Scottish." And I said, "Yeah," which is wild, really, because she's been in Cornwall twice as long as she ever lived in Scotland now.
Yes.
She's still so Scottish.
Like I mean, Scots are generally known to be stubborn.
They are.
and she's done very well.
She's done well.
Especially because your dad.
Yeah. Is very Cornish.
Yeah. He's like opposite end of the country.
Yeah.
And opposite end of the spectrum in terms of.
I tell you what, explaining to the Aussies what the accents in my house were growing up baffles them. I try and speak to them in a Scottish accent and then flick to a Cornish one straight away.
Yeah, see, I can do that between Plymouth and Cornwall.
Right.
How weird is that? Like, bear in mind, there's just a bridge between them.
Yeah.
But if I'm talking to my mum, like my mum and my nan and all that lot, I go so Jana.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. And then I could literally turn around and speak to my mother-in-law, who's quite Cornish.
Yeah.
And I sound completely different.
Great.
Just explaining to anybody about the different accents in such a small little island.
Yeah, it is mad.
It is mad.
Yeah.
We've basically known each other all our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We went to all the same schools.
Yeah.
Did you do sixth form? Yeah, so we were in sixth form together then.
Yeah.
And then you went off to uni and I went off to work. So what were you like at school? What do you think you were like at school?
Like primary school or secondary school?
Let's start at primary school.
I think I was a little shit at primary school. I think I was a bit of a know-it-all, a bit of a tryhard, and then I've always had a bit of a streak of like knowing that there's a rule about something and having to push it. Like I knew we weren't allowed to climb the trees in the primary school, like in the field,
Yeah.
and I used to always be up them. And then one day I climbed one of the trees and snapped a branch, and Mrs. Bradshaw, who was the head teacher, called my dad in over the weekend, and Dad had to like saw off the branch, and he was livid. It was like one of my overwhelming memories of primary school. But I can remember I was in a year group, small year group. I think it was like 7 of us.
Yeah.
And in that year group was a lot of really quite switched on people. We were all relatively switched on, and we used to like constantly race to get the work done.
Yeah.
So I can remember one of my strongest memories, other than snapping the tree branch, in primary school is having math sheets and the whole lot of us on a table racing through these math sheets to be the first one to like run to the front, hand the math sheet in and get another one. How do you remember me in primary school?
Well, I remember you, in all honesty, as Jenny's brother.
Yeah, valid.
Now, I'd hate to bring this up, but she was my first girlfriend.
I do recall.
And I very fond memories of holding her hand on a hay bale on the back of a tractor as we sang nativity songs.
Yeah, great.
Because that's what you do when you're in a Cornish school.
Yeah. Apparently.
We were never really in the same clique, were we?
No.
Even in that really small setting.
My memory of you was that you were the sporty one. You were always running and always playing football.
Yeah.
And I just have always detested football, Daryl.
Yeah. And I, for a period, detested football as well at one point. But you got into rugby, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Did you play for Saltash?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
For a few years. I got into it in 2 parts, really. 1, to try and like toughen me up a bit.
Yeah.
And 2, to like have a group of friends.
Yeah.
So like at that sort of age, I was sailing loads. It's a very individual sport.
Yeah.
You just sort of do your own thing. And I had a couple of mates down the sailing club, but I didn't have tons of mates at secondary school. And which is mad to say now, because I've got a group of boys now that we've got this group chat that pings I'm fucking useless. Like it pings every damn day.
There's always one who never responds or contributes to it.
And it's me. Yeah.
I am that in a couple as well.
But then they're always talking about football and they know I fucking hate it. So, but yeah, I didn't, particularly in the first couple of years of secondary school, like I didn't have tons of mates and I found it pretty hard. And my dad just kept on going, we'll go and play rugby. So I don't want to fucking play rugby. He was like, just go and play rugby. And I went and it was great and I did enjoy it. And I went for years.
Yeah.
Years and years. Year 7 through to year.
You carry yourself like you play rugby.
Is that a fat joke?
Like, rugby players are no longer fat.
No, yeah.
They're absolute tanks
Yeah.
now. And I'm not saying you're an absolute tank.
Oh, Daryl.
But I'd say you're tanky.
Thanks. Feel tanky. Yeah, no, I liked it. I was never all that good at it. Like, my throwing and catching was always really shit. But I liked it. It was fun. It was a good patch of my life.
And it's definitely the bond that you have with your teammates and stuff. But do you think I've always thought about this, going from such a small school, and we'll probably touch on it in a bit, what it's like where you lived all your life, like your young life, to then go up and have to socialize with all these different people.
Yeah.
Do you think that was the struggle the first couple of years, or?
Yeah. So for context, listeners, I grew up on a little farm in Carkeel with my auntie and uncle and cousins next door, and my gran and step-granddad across the yard in the farmhouse. And the little farm was like just a bubble of safe and wonderful and beautiful. And then, I went to this little primary school with 60-something kids, and it was safe and lovely and beautiful. And then I turned 11, went to secondary school, went to Saltash, and it was 1,200 people and chaos.
Yeah.
Constantly. And I can remember thinking that I'd transitioned really well, and that it never really fazed me. Reflecting, I'm like, yeah, that was a culture shock. Like, it went from very small and quaint and calm to big.
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yeah, and that can be overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah. I think that's probably why I knew I was quite bright, because primary school. And I was like, cool, okay, well, I'll just knuckle down. And I just was like, right, well, I'll just try really hard in school. For year 7 and 8, after that, I did fuck all.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate because I had football.
Yeah.
Which I already knew a lot of people my age from other schools.
Yeah.
So it was much easier for me, but I can totally imagine, like, for my sister and everything, how weird that must be.
Yeah.
But you get used to it.
Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Change is the only thing you can rely on. That's one of my grands. You can have that one for free.
Oh, and I love your grand. Sorry. So when you hit year 8 onwards.
Like 12.
Yeah. Did you start coming into your own a little bit? And
No.
Big fat no.
No. So started puberty relatively early.
Hence the beard.
Yeah. And then started realizing that I was gay. And there was a good handful of dickheads in my year that were in my class who obviously had realized it as well and made my life really pretty shit for really quite a long time. And then, kind of year 8 through to year 11, there were some wonderful parts of that time.
Of
like
course.
I sailed and I played rugby and I did trampolining and I had some really good mates that saw me through the entire time. But there was also like design tech classes. There were a couple of lads in there who I knew that I was going to walk in and they were going to be at me for an hour. And I used to I'd walk down the DT corridor, like heart pounding, breathing going through the roof. And like, I'd walk in, head down and just try and find a space and tolerate the hour. And it was DT and a couple other classes. And like that lasted 5 years. And it was really quite miserable for a lot of it.
That's really sad. Do you mind me asking?
No, probably not.
What was it like realizing?
Miserable. I can remember Googling it hundreds of times.
Really?
Googling like, when does puberty finish? Because then I was like, maybe this is a phase.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's a phase, maybe it's a phase, maybe it's a phase. Maybe like, and it was like, oh, most people finish like 18, but they can finish 21 or even mid-20s. And I was like, oh, right, yeah, cool. So like,
I'll just ride it out.
Yeah, just ride it out. It's fine. It's not a problem.
No
it's
way.
a normal thing. I'm sure it is.
Because of like, Yeah, because it must be so confusing.
Yeah. I think that the thing that was the most confusing part of it was like other people had clearly realized it before I'd realized it. So they'd be calling me like gay and a puff
Yeah.
and I'd be like, fuck off, like I'm not. What do you remember of me at secondary school?
I really don't remember you at secondary school, to be
I
really
bet.
honest.
Faded into the background.
So
mate.
much so that the last time we spoke besides messaging,
Yeah.
I saw you in Waitrose and I was humbled by you without you realizing because we were chatting and just sort of like very quickly catching up as you do with a worker that you know and a shopper that you know. We've both got things to do. And I said, oh, so have you got a missus? And you went, no, Daryl, I'm gay. How did you not know? And that is probably the last time I've ever asked whether anybody has got a missus.
Good.
And
partner now.
Yeah, it's partner, good. Spouse, other half.
Significant other.
And when I first started this latest job, I was telling people that me and my partner were having a baby.
Great.
And they all thought that I was gay until the Christmas do.
And they met your missus and were like, oh, right.
I was like, we thought you were adopting a baby. So that was a great feeling.
Great.
That people have misjudged me like that.
I think with things like that, mate, it's interesting to see the way that general society will make judgment.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably this is not me like being preachy. This is probably a good lesson for you to have a tiny view into what LGBTQ life is like.
Yeah.
And it's different everywhere. And Cornwall obviously is a very unique place. Having people make misconceptions about you and your private life isn't something that most heteronormative couples will experience.
No.
People will have a set of expectations. Normally you'll match them and everything muddles along. But now you've seen the other side. You've seen what it's like to be outside of society's norms.
I have spent my entire life in that middle range.
Yeah.
But also it just goes to show that I had no idea. Because you don't stereotypically, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, stereotypically come across as gay.
Yeah, and I think this is another one of those things where expectations.
Yeah.
People have all these expectations that some of them don't, lots of people don't even realize they have these expectations until something confronts them.
Absolutely. And I got confronted, not even rude or anything. It was just how you said it.
I have to say, the way you've said it makes me go, Christ, was I that harsh about it? I must have been having a bad day, mate.
You didn't come across you didn't, but maybe I said it a little bit more aggressive than you did. But I think you were more shocked that you had not
realised.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I
think, well, the other thing is this, mate. And it's one of the things that will be interesting to see if I hear from people that have listened to your podcast, is that coming out is exhausting. It is.
I was going to ask
absolutely exhausting. And the thing, and anyone in the LGBTQ plus community out there will know this, the constantly having to do it. Because once you've done it and you've told all the people in your friends and your family that you care about, that you see on a day to day, that's one thing, and that's a lot. But then having to bump into people you know in the supermarket and be like, no, I'm gay. It's
really
exhausting.
Have to do that,
this
though.
is it. Because how many people do you bump into and you say to them, how's your partner? And they have to clarify their sexual stance.
Yeah.
It's just bothersome.
99% of people don't really give a shit and I genuinely didn't.
Yeah.
I just misspoke.
Yeah.
And learned my lesson terribly.
Well, there you go.
And I was just like, oh, crap. Because I constantly put my foot in it because I speak so much. Do you know what I mean? The chances of me saying something out of order, misconstrued, or anything like that is very high because I speak so much.
Yeah.
But those moments where I'm humbled, it just, honestly, I really, really embrace them.
Yeah.
Because it's just like learning really quickly. And I don't really do embarrassment like that. But if ever, there's been a couple of occasions where I've just been like, why did I say that? Why in that moment?
Oh, yeah. Same. Happens to everyone.
But yeah, so when you say about coming out, what happens?
Well,
what did you decide How did you go about it?
Well, I mean, might as well start with like school,
Yeah.
and then we'll do it chronologically so that the story is sort of relatively simple, but I'll brush through this next bit relatively fast. I did my A-levels. I did okay. And I decided I wanted to be a PE teacher, which, if he listens, is because Brendan Lee was the absolute man. He was just fair, kind, calm, like all the things that emulated excellent masculinity and a stable personality for me. And I was like, cool, I want to be that person for other people.
That's really, really nice.
Oh,
Such a nice thing to say.
it is what it is. And I have one of my favorite stories to tell about secondary school paints him as the devil, because, and it's hilarious, or hilarious for me at least. So we were doing my memory of it, and hopefully you get him on, and he can tell you his memory of it, and maybe it'll be different. But my memory of it was a week or two before this lesson, he'd appeared. I think I was doing some after school club, and he appeared and he handed me 3 tennis balls and went, "Can you juggle?" And I went, "No." And I handed the tennis balls straight back to him, and he went, No, have a go, like show me what you can do. And I was like, Mr. Lee, no, I can't juggle. Because like my gross motor skills, doing flips and stuff, fine. My fine motor skills, like coordination, like hand-eye coordination and like catching, never been good. Cos gay. And
them jeans.
Yeah. And we walked into one of our A-level theory lessons, right?
Yeah.
And wrote down the starter and stuff, and the unit we were doing was sports psychology. He hands me his keys, and he handed me his keys, and he went, "Tom, can you go grab me 3 tennis balls?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I walk out, these keys jangling, like over to the sports hall, and the whole time I'm thinking, why has he asked me to grab 3 tennis balls? Like, I hope he isn't going to ask me to juggle. He knows I can't juggle. Like that would actually be really not very funny.
Yeah.
I was like, why? He could have asked anyone. And like, probably I'm his favourite, so that makes sense. But like, why is he asking me for 3 tennis? And the whole walk over, and I went and I got 3 tennis balls from the store cupboard, and I'm walking back. And as I'm walking back, I like just start feeling myself panic a little bit. And I'm like, he's not going to ask me to juggle, is he? He knows I can't juggle. That would be really a bit mean. And I walk into the lesson, and he goes, "Right, Tom, I have my keys back." I chuck him his keys, and he goes, "Cool, can you juggle for us?" And I looked at him, I was like, "No, you know I can't juggle." He goes, "Go on, give it a go. Have a juggle." And so I try, and I drop the balls, and the class erupts with laughter. And I pick the balls up, and he goes, "Have another go." And I was like, "No." And he goes, "Go on, have another go." And I was like, "Nah, I really don't want to."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Go on, just give it another try." And I tried again, and I dropped the balls even quicker. And the class erupts with laughter. And at this point, I'm like almost shaking.
Yeah, you're ready to lose it.
Yeah. And he was like, "Right, pick the balls up." And I picked the balls up, and he was like, "Right, try and juggle." And I flat refused. And I was really like, absolutely not. I'm not doing it. Obviously I can't. No. And he went, "Great. That was a perfect example. Right, sit down, Tom. Today we're learning about the negative thought anxiety cycle, where you attempt something, and if you fail and it's reinforced that you failed by external things like people laughing at you or someone telling you can't do it, then the next time you think about doing it, it becomes a little more stressful, and you attempt it with a bit less effort and a bit less zeal, and then you're not as good second time round, and it becomes this cycle of stress and anxiety, which means your performance decreases." And I was like, "Cool.
Oh my
cool.
God.
Thanks, mate." To this day, I can remember negative thought anxiety cycle.
And the fact that you could remember that word for word.
Yeah.
That's stuck.
Oh, mate, did that stick. And most of the people in that A-level PE class got really good grades. He was a fantastic theory teacher. But I remember that lesson crystal clear. And I was like, yeah, that was a good way to hammer a lesson home.
Yeah, that's a memorable way, isn't it? Like,
which, like, that paints him as a dreadful person, but it wasn't. It was all fun and games.
Yeah, of course. Things like that are what make teachers legendary and what makes you remember them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you don't hear about those sorts of stories nowadays.
Yeah,
because it's a new way of teaching. No, but brilliant.
Yeah, so
you went to.
So I ended up deciding I was going to be a PE teacher, and I applied to Liverpool John Moores, Chichester, and I believe, generally speaking, all the PE teachers told me I should go to Chichester because they thought I should move away. But Chichester would have been 4 years and a PGCE, and Marjon was 3 years. And I was like, well, less student debt. I quite like the little farm that I grew up on. I was like, happily live at home.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my mates were staying relatively local. I was like, right, cool. I'll go to Mahjong. And that was dreadful. Honestly, did 2 years, snapped my left knee trampolining, had to take a year out because the last year of the degree was like a lot of teaching practice. And they were like, we can't be wandering around a rugby field in a knee brace. So took a year out, did tons and tons of coaching in that time. Jumped back into my 3rd year, hated every minute of it, kept telling my dad I wanted to quit, and he kept telling me, you're absolutely not quitting, see it through. Finished, and I was like, cool, I'm never teaching again. And he was like, go and get your NQT year done. And I was like, ugh. And he was like, just get on with it, get your NQT year done, then it's always there if you need it. And I was like, right, yeah. And I moved to Bournemouth for a teaching job, partly because Bournemouth has one of the world's greatest trampoline clubs, and partly because it was a couple-hour drive home. If I wanted to come home on the weekend, I'd come home. And I started teaching at a school where, pretty rough area, didn't get on great with the management, but I was working across the PE and science departments.
Okay.
And the staff were just diamonds. Like every teacher in that school was an absolute legend, like really wonderful people. But yeah, had a really rough time because that was very much the sort of time where I was like, I'd left home, I was on my own, and I realized like I'd dated a few girls, and I was starting to realize that I was deeply unhappy.
Yeah.
And then was like really clinically depressed.
Oh.
And because I was like, I'd repressed the idea that I was gay so deeply. And I'd had these girlfriends and I thought, well, clearly I'm fine. This is fine. Probably in my teen years, I was like more acutely aware of being gay than like in my mid-20s. But then when I kind of went, oh, I actually am really miserable. I can't live my life like this. I'm not going to have a wife and 2 kids and a Labrador and a 3-bed house. Like that's not what's going to happen. I got super, super depressed. I came home on Christmas and decided I was with my aunt and my cousins in the house next door and like had a few drinks and decided I was relatively pissed, and I decided I was going to go next door and tell my parents, and if they responded well, then great, and if they didn't, I suppose I should go back to Bournemouth and like be done with it.
No way.
And they were okay. Great in the like following months, but okay at the time. And then a couple of weeks later, Dad got diagnosed with the first round of cancer.
No way.
Yeah. And he, dreadful as it is, like, I think he realised there's bigger problems.
Yeah.
Like having a gay son is not a big deal when, chemotherapy is knocking on your door and you're going to be diving into it.
Yeah.
And then, that was coming out, really.
Do you think
that was it? I told the friends of mine that I felt it was important to tell. I told the people I worked with.
And you told the pleb that worked at Waitrose?
That was years after, though, Daryl. That's the thing.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, man. I'd gotten to the point where I was like, surely everyone knows now. Surely I don't have to keep telling people.
Yeah, sorry I rekindled.
That's all right. How it happens, every couple of weeks I have to go and explain something to someone. You're like,
how did you feel after? Because people say that it's like like a weight has been lifted.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. I think one of the reasons I'd gotten into such a bad state was because Cornwall is not an especially open society. People,
it's about 100 years behind the rest of the world, isn't it?
And I think I had developed a belief that it wasn't possible to live a happy and fulfilling life as a gay man.
No. So
what it meant was when I came out and my friends and family were all like, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, we love you. It's fine. Which was lovely. Like, I then had about 12 months of like mental breakdown because in that 12 months I was like, oh, I have to find a way to live now. Like, I have to figure out the meaning of my life. I have to find something that works for me, that makes me happy. And yeah, it had like a solid 12 months of that. That 12 months was actually in many ways worse than the preceding 3 years that built up to that moment.
Yeah, of course.
Like figuring out who I was, who I wanted to be, what I wanted out of life, all those things. I think for a lot of people, their mid-20s are where they like start to round themselves out as an adult and a personality and decide what they're doing with their lives and finding a partner, having kids, like starting to set up the next 30 years of your life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was coming to terms with my sexuality. And the thing was, it was coming to terms with it, not figuring out who I am as a person, figuring out what I want out of life, having a plan of how I'm going to do those things.
Yeah.
It was just that one thing. And so everything else, it was like life beyond that moment had no plan or direction. So it was a mess.
Yeah.
It was just really hard to understand like where I was going and what I was going to do. And
everything's foggy.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Yeah.
That sounds horrendous.
It wasn't great, mate. Gonna be honest.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I did a bit of therapy, but the therapist was no fucking good, to be honest. But really, what got me through was I had 5 athletes I was working with, and teaching was shit, like long hours, hard work, nasty kids. But I had these kids I was working with, and they kept making British teams and they kept qualifying for bigger and bigger stuff. And
so this is in trampolining.
Yeah.
I feel like we skipped a big bit here. The fact that like where you are at now.
Yeah. Right. So the trampoline story starts in year 9.
Yeah.
Where we were starting, the PE teachers were starting to talk about, right, what sports you're going to be assessed in. You needed to be assessed in 4 sports. It was going to be 25 marks per sport. And I said, well, I'm quite good at sailing. And they said, yeah, cool. We'll assess you in sailing. That'll probably be a good mark. I said, I'm okay at rugby. They're like, yeah, cool. You're plenty good enough at rugby to get a good mark. And then we were a bit lost for the other ones. I can't really remember what the 4th one was, but Michelle Cook said, we'll come trampolining for 6 weeks. We'll get a half decent routine out of you. And I was like, yeah, sure, fine. Whatever. And I went and I was like, oh yeah, no, cool. This is it. I'm going to do trampolining now. And that was it. I was trampolining every minute that I could. As soon as I could do my assistant coach qualification, like I think it was 15 you could do it, and 16 you get the certificate. I did that. And then your level 1 you could do at 17 and get the certificate at 18, and I did that and found myself in a club with an amazing coach called Dom Elsom, who was just wonderful.
Yeah.
Tons of fun. I was definitely a pain in his ass because I was like super obsessed with the sport, but not very good at it. Well, in the school context, I could do more flips than most people. So everyone thought I was the mutts nuts.
When you step out and go into a club where everybody's good.
Yeah. And then when I moved to Bournemouth, I was jumping and coaching at the club there. And then all the way through my teaching, I was coaching and picked up a group of kids and they started qualifying for British teams and stuff. And they did great stuff. And like to this day, like some of my favorite people to chat to and spend time with. And I'd come out and been depressed and had like a year of mental breakdown, but
trampolining was your constant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was your like grounding.
Yeah. Because, well, I could be feeling a mess or feeling stressed or feeling depressed or whatever, but kids had a qualifying competition in 2 weeks and they needed to be ready for it. And if they didn't hit this qualifying competition, they weren't going to go to World Championships. So have your shit together, Tom, because they need you. And I was like, all right, cool. Better have my shit together then, I suppose.
It's like sometimes you do need something like that.
Yeah. So actually this last year in Australia, because it's been an Olympic year, that's kind of the only major thing that anyone was working towards.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit weird having no obvious direction of we're trying to aim for this, we're trying to do this.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks ago, the selection policy for the 2025 World Championships came out. And I took like a big sigh of relief. And I didn't even realize until that policy came out how necessary it has been for the last 10 years of my life and career to have a policy and a competition that athletes and I are working towards to provide like structure and consistency.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, okay, now I know what game we're playing. Let's get to it.
So do you think your injury, like, do you think that played a part in the whole, like, shitstorm that was your mind at that time? Or
Yeah, I mean,
because you got really good at trampolining,
no,
didn't you?
I was really average, man.
Were you?
Yeah, as a competitive
Again,
athlete.
like, yeah, from my perspective,
Yeah, and
there was only one guy in school that
did trampoline, and
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there was only one guy who was any good at badminton.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
You know, it's all those sorts of things.
Yeah, but I guess it's the big fish in the little pond thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like I did my knee, so I had a relatively extensive knee injury. So I did like ACL, PCL, and MCL ruptures, patella tendon rupture, all of the lateral meniscus.
On a trampoline?
Yeah. Some of the medial meniscus, and like dented the head of my femur. It was a big injury. Like the physio that sorted me out.
Because I remember seeing you on the bus. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, yeah, it was a big old boot they had on there.
Yeah, the physio that sorted it out got his doctorate from it.
No way.
Yeah, he wrote his final project on my knee and got his doctorate from it, which was pretty cool.
That is good.
It is cool.
That's a claim to fame.
Yeah, innit? But yeah, I loved it. I loved the sport and I loved doing it. I had that injury and then I got back to it, got my skills back, was starting to put a routine together, and then I snapped the other leg.
No way.
Yeah. I've got this skin graft. It's dreadful.
Oh my God.
Yeah, isn't that cool though? So that piece of flesh came from my thigh up here. I've got this great S-shaped.
Oh, so you haven't got like an arse leg?
Nah, it came from there.
No way.
Yeah, and after I snapped my second leg, because that was just that was a bit more simple. It was tibia and fibula break.
Yeah.
And again, it was trampolining. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm done jumping. I'm going to coach.
How weird is it because people genuinely don't realize, if you've never been on an Olympic size trampoline. An Olympic trampoline, how pinpoint perfect you've got to be.
It can go very wrong very quickly. Yeah. You know the ones we had at school?
Yeah, that's it.
Nah, mate.
They're not.
They're the baby ones.
No way.
Yeah.
Because they were bad enough.
Yeah, they were powerful pieces of kit, but Olympic size are like, they're higher. Like, the frames are higher off the floor. Yeah. They're longer and wider, and they're probably twice as powerful.
Wow.
Maybe more. Like, I'd definitely say that they're multiples of that level of power.
By powerful, you mean like the stretch?
The force that it could apply to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you come up, it's no way.
Yeah.
Because people there's so many cool things now. Those trampoline people that like go up and land on like a skateboard ramp almost, and then jump down.
Oh yeah, like circus, the V trampolines like they have in the circus.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Oh my God, it's so because I love trampolining.
Yeah,
we've got a trampoline out in the back garden because I never had a trampoline when I was growing up, and I wish I did. It wasn't until secondary school, and Lyra, it has been the best for her balance.
Great.
She could bear in mind she's 2. She can jump really high.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. Kind of reliving just an incy bit of my childhood.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
trampoline's so much fun.
They are.
Man, it's so much fun.
But yeah, does your injury still affect you now?
Yeah, not badly, but
wake up cold mornings. I mean, I appreciate in Australia there's not many, but
yeah. Sometimes I've got screws and a big metal rod in this shin, and sometimes they ache. This knee doesn't flex all the way, so when I'm squatting, it's really hard for me to feel what's even. And what that means is the muscle imbalances in quads, hamstrings, and glutes.
Yeah.
Which is contributing to some lower back problems.
Yeah.
But also I'm 33. Who's not got a bit of a sore lower back?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I stretch a lot and do a little bit of yoga, and that really helps.
No way.
Yeah. because like, muscle imbalances
Is that like
can...
daily?
I'd say that I'd do a good stretch once a week,
Yeah.
and then a couple of little stretches a week. And when I'm coaching, it's been Christmas time. I've been sitting around
Yeah,
a
of
lot.
course.
But when I'm coaching, if I've got a group of littlies, I'll stretch with them during our warm up to be like, right, you know, here's the position we're looking for. Check.
Yeah.
And like providing a bit of technical feedback on like toes pointed, legs straight, check that your hips rolled this way or that way,
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, having a good stretch is great, mate.
Yeah, I need to.
Yeah, people need to get on it.
I need to, because I've always been like flexible, well balanced, but the last maybe 5-10 years, I've gained so much weight in my just purely belly, to be fair, and I looked more pregnant than my wife. Like if I pumped out, I was protruding more, but aches and pains are terrible.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm currently got broken ribs.
Yeah.
From rugby.
So it's important for context. Trampolining, you know, it's a relatively small sport, relatively little known. And in the same way as in like diving, you've got 10 meter, 3 meter springboard, and there's like different disciplines. In trampoline, there is also different disciplines.
Is there?
There is. And when we wrap up, I'll show you some videos of some stuff.
Yeah.
So there's individual trampoline, which is what everyone would recognize at trampolining. That is the discipline that's in the Olympics.
Yes.
And now that's what I coach most.
Right.
Then there's double mini trampoline, which is what...
Is that where they got... It's like synchronized?
No, so that's synchro.
Oh.
So synchro is individual trampoline, but two people doing it at the same time in sync.
I'm sorry if this is offensive, but
No,
it's
okay.
like Tom Daly with the diving.
Yeah. Same principle. You like part of your score will come from how similar the actions are and how in time you are.
Yeah.
Double mini trampoline. You remember the little trampettes we had at school?
Yeah.
So imagine one of them on a slant, stuck to another one on the flat, and you run at it, hit the slanted one, flip onto the top one, flip off onto a landing area.
Right, yes.
That's where, in Britain, my success as a coach came.
Wow.
So the kids that I was coaching were doing that discipline at a very, very high level.
Yeah.
And then there's tumbling, power tumbling, where you have like a 25 meter fiberglass rod floor and people do flips all the way down it.
Yes.
Which is great. I got to Bournemouth and had already done a little bit of double mini coaching, but I realised that there was probably scope for me to pick up the double mini program at that club, and that there wasn't that many high performance double mini coaches in the country at the time. And then I was like, right, there's a gap here. I'm going to exploit it. I'm going to like put myself on a British team. And the head coach at that club at the time was a lady called Sharon Wood. And she sort of supported that. She was like, yeah, okay, the more high performance coaches we can have from the club in different disciplines, the more we can fill the British team with our club.
Yeah. Like
dominance. Let's go.
Yeah.
So she was super on board with me taking on the double mini program and like pushing it forward. Yeah. And the best athlete that I've ever coached and the best person I know is a girl called Kirsty Way.
Yeah.
And I picked her up middle of 2014 and she must have been 17, I think. She did like incredible things, really. She has the highest difficulty score of any British girl.
No way.
For one routine and for two, we call them passes on double mini. So 1 pass difficulty score, 2 pass difficulty score, highest total score, first British girl to land a triple back in competition, first girl globally to land a 2.5 twisting double front.
No way.
Yeah, she
and
European champion a couple of times, World Cup medalist a couple of times.
And you were coaching.
Yeah.
That.
So the journey of my high performance coaching starts with her, really.
How does it work being able to coach something you can't do yourself?
I get that question a lot. And I used to have a really good metaphor for it, and I've obviously lost it in the depths of my memory somewhere. But you don't have to... Sorry, Ben's
No, that's all right. Mine's doing the exact same. It's the sitting position.
Yeah. You don't have to be able to do something to know how to do it well. For example, Darryl, you and I both know what healthy eating is.
Yes.
We could probably tell someone how to have a good, nutritious diet.
That's very true.
But I'm certainly not doing it right
And
now.
also, when the Olympics are on,
Right, everyone's a pro.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that dive, they had a bit of a splash there. I was like, right,
Yeah.
cool. Well, if you can tell him how to not do that splash.
Mine's like dressage as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, that horse.
The tempo of his trot is well off. I can't believe he's doing a 1.8. Should be a 1.4.
I am exactly that person.
Yeah, it's that. My boss and my mentor now is a lady in Sydney called Belinda Cox. And we have a very similar philosophy that the very best athletes in trampoline, I don't know if this is like a generalization across sports, but certainly in trampoline, our view is the very best athletes don't make the best coaches because things tended to come relatively easy to those people.
Yeah.
And then trying to explain to someone how to do something differently because they're struggling with it is a big challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas her and I were both all right at the sport.
Yeah.
So we can explain it 12 different ways and understand the athlete in front of us, which way they need it explained or what information they need. And we both believe it makes us better coaches.
So did you go to an Olympic?
No, not yet. This is why I'm in Australia.
Oh, okay.
So was coaching double mini.
Yep.
Got to the point where there was me and another coach who was the head British coach of double mini called Phil Dodson. He was an incredible mate and a great mentor. Really, as arrogant as it is to say, there was a patch of 2 or 3 years where British double mini was my program, his program, and then 1 or 2, like a smattering of other athletes.
Yeah.
But like big chunk of the kids I coached were doing junior worlds or senior worlds. Big chunk of the guys that he coached were doing junior worlds or senior worlds. And then like 1 or 2 from here, 1 or 2 from there, 1 from here. And Kirsty had done, so for sports that aren't in the Olympics, there's a multi-sport event called the World Games.
Yes.
And the World Games happens once every 4 years. And it's insane because there's all sorts of weird stuff. There's like ultimate frisbee, tag football, sumo wrestling, Kai John martial arts. Like,
is that televised?
It is, but not well.
Like,
because it's cool it's so cool to watch.
That sounds like, because people, obviously there's been a lot of controversy about having skateboarding and things in the Olympics.
Yeah.
And to hear that there is a place for
those events,
sounds incredible.
Oh, so I've attended one. So Kirsty went in 2017 to Poland, and I attended that just to watch.
Yeah.
I wasn't picked as the coach, which in fairness, I was very new to the international scene. It was a good shout. I would have shit my pants. But I went and I watched a bunch of stuff and I saw the city, and it was just mad. Like there was all these random and weird sports to watch. It was so cool. And then in 2020, I think, because the Olympics was 2020, but it was pushed to 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. World Games was meant to be 21 and it was pushed to 22. Kirsty and I went with one of Phil's lads, Omo, to Birmingham, Alabama, to the World Games in the Deep South. And that was probably the most fun I've had at a competition.
Yeah, I bet.
So cool. And for a double mini coach or a tumbling coach or an acrobatic gymnastics coach, that would be like the pinnacle event.
Yeah.
Like it happens once every 4 years. One coach gets to go.
That's what you build up to.
That's the one. So I'd coached Kirsty through 2 of them. I'd attended one as a coach, and I'd started to look at things like, are there sports halls around in like Southampton, or like I wanted to be on the South Coast, but I was starting to look at like, maybe I'll start my own club. Maybe I'll branch out, do something else. Because as much as I really loved the people I worked with and I really loved the gym that I was at, I wasn't paid tons because at this point, so 19, I'd quit teaching and become a full-time coach.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And it's not like a financially fantastic career to be in.
Of course.
You're in it for the love.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I don't have a wife and 2 kids to support.
Yeah. You can live within your means.
Right. If I run a little tight 1 month, then like, right, beans on toast it is. No dramas. I'd already started kind of like looking for additional opportunity, and I got a Facebook message from Belinda in Sydney, and she said, "Hey, we're looking for a full-time coach. Come to Australia." And
did you even think about it? Was it straight up?
yeah,
Yes?
no, it was hard, and the bit that was hard was being so far from family. Hard.
Couldn't get much further, really, could you?
Couldn't.
Unless you go up.
Yeah, would be pretty tough to be further away. Being so far from family, hard decision to make on that part. Also leaving the athletes that I coach. So one of the things that was a factor in the decision was, well, I've coached at minor international competitions and I've coached at major internationals, at junior and senior European championships, at World Cups, at World Championships, and at World Games. But I'm not going to get to an Olympics as a coach unless I'm coaching individual trampoline, and the political structure of British gymnastics and the coaches involved at the moment, a lot of them, you know, long-standing, much more senior to me.
Yeah.
It was going to be super unlikely that I was ever going to make it to an Olympics here. And it's not a hill I'm going to die on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do, 28 years and, cycles and cycles of Olympics to try and get there.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a crack.
Yeah, that's good.
Give it a go. And I've been in Australia a year and a half now, and some really awesome athletes that I'm working with, and certainly like a good handful of them that have a shot.
That's
so
brilliant.
Yeah. So that's where I am now.
And
that's where we're at.
It's so good that you've come back. You've been there 18 months and you haven't got a twang of Australian.
Well, no. Well, Mum's been in Cornwall for 40 years and she hasn't got a twang of Cornish. So
I go to Wales for a weekend and I come back saying hello.
What's kid?
So where are you headspace now?
All right. Moving to Sydney was pretty tough.
Yeah.
And the last year has been like...
That's a big old place as well, Sydney, isn't it?
It is big. From someone that grew up on a little farm in Cargill.
That's what I was going to summarise on, is the fact that you started off... So what's 2025 looking like for you?
Well, there's not loads in the calendar, which is nice. It means I can focus on trying to get as many of the kids I coach to Worlds. So World Championships is in Pamplona in Spain.
Yeah.
And that will be in November 25. And there is actually, this year is 25 is the year of the World Games.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of an outside chance that a couple of the guys I coach will get the spots, and then maybe I'll get to go to another World Games. But
where is it this year? 2025.
Chengdu, China. Chengdu, China. So it's like southwest China. I've never been, I've been to Hong Kong, so it really depends on your sort of political affiliation, whether you count that as China. But I've not been to central China, so that would be super cool. And I might, if I don't get picked for it, I might go as a tourist, because the competition is cool to watch anyway.
Yeah.
And I've not been to China, so that'd be cool. I know I've got a mate in Hong Kong who speaks Chinese, and might just be like, right, come on, mate, you can come be my tour guide. So that would be fun.
The freedom you have.
Yeah, it's cool, eh?
That is cool.
Yeah.
And one thing I always say to Liz is that when you see people who don't have partners, don't have children and those sorts of things, in the last maybe 5 years, I love seeing people out there tearing shit up and actually using that freedom, because it's so easy to just tuck yourself away.
I think if I was straight, I'd have a missus and 2 kids, and I'd be teaching, and that would be fine. Like it really would be. I think that would be
Fine is never a good word unless you're talking
that
wine.
would be great. It would be ideal.
Yeah.
I think that would just be what I settled into, and I would have been like, cool.
Yeah.
Like, let's watch the kids grow. Let's live this lifestyle. As soon as I realized I was going to be living outside of society's expectations, I was like, oh, so that means I don't have to align myself with any of society's expectations. So anytime an opportunity came along, I just went, yeah, cool. Like it's the freedom to be able to just crack on.
And I appreciate the struggle that you've gone through, but to put a positive spin on all that.
Yeah.
Nobody who is happy and fulfilled and enjoying life, nobody has just got there. I mean, they've had to go through that shit and appreciate the shit
Yeah.
to be able to be in that place.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
I'm sure everybody's got their battles and everybody has got their story, but it's so good to see you like not living it up, but taking these opportunities and going, yeah, do you know what? I might just go over there anyway.
Yeah.
Because you can.
Yeah. That is cool.
For me, that's going to take about 4 years. I've got a plan where the children would be in school.
Yeah.
And start saving now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I don't know. As a kid, I always thought I wasn't ever going to get to see any of these places. And that, like, we were the type of family and I was the type of person that just sat in Cornwall and you know, was in Cornwall.
That's what makes this podcast so interesting.
Yeah.
Because now I've spoken to a lot of people who've done a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's just great seeing the change of mindset, but also talking about the downsides of it and the struggles. And thank you so much for
no dark without light, mate.
Guys, I really hope you enjoyed that. There is so much more coming up. What a great start to 2025 with this episode. Please keep sharing. Please keep talking about it. Love you lots. Cheers.
Happy New Year.